The first time I see the bunker, I almost walk past it. The entrance is low in the hill, a concrete frame half buried under dirt and dry leaves. Blasted metal door hanging crooked on one hinge. It looks more like a culvert than the front to anything important. The paint is gone. Only a faint outline of old symbols on the wall. No tracks in the mud. No fresh footprints. Just wind and the quiet that follows, towns dying one by one. I stand in the doorway for a long time with my pack on my shoulders and my rifle slung across my front, listening. The main road I abandoned an hour ago is somewhere behind me through the trees. Out there, I know what waits. Cars on the shoulder, houses with doors broken in, the infected wandering in loops until something breaks the pattern. In here, I do not know yet. The air smells stale, metal and dust and something old. No rot, though. That is important. I nudge the blast door aside with the barrel of the rifle. It squeals along the hinge and drops another inch, sending a few flakes of rust to the floor. A narrow stairwell drops down into the dark concrete steps slick with damp. There is a light switch by the frame. Yellowed plastic cracked along one corner. I press it with a knuckle more out of habit than hope. A row of ceiling lamps flicker on, one after another, humming faintly. The light is weak and a little yellow, but it holds. I freeze in the doorway and listen again. The air unit up above must still have juice. Some buried cable tied into the old grid is feeding this place, or a backup battery survived longer than it had any right to. There is no sound except a slow drip somewhere below and the buzz of ancient fixtures. No shuffling, no scraping. I step in and pull the blast door as far closed as it will go. It grinds against the frame and stops short of sealing. I jam an old metal rod from the floor through the hinge and wedge it tight. It will not stop a real push, but it will slow one, and it will make noise if anything forces its way in. I hang an empty tin mug on a nail near the top of the frame so it will rattle if the door moves. After the last 2 weeks on the road, I do not trust silence unless I arrange it myself. Stairs lead down to the first landing. Faded stenciling on the wall reads, Level 1 in chipped black paint. Beneath that, someone added a line in marker, Civil Defense Coordination Center. The ink bled down from years of damp. I move slowly, rifle up, barrel covering each corner before my boots follow. A faint draft breathes out of the stairwell, cool and dry. I can smell metal cabinets, stale paper, old rubber. The smell of a place that has been shut, but not abandoned to mold. Level 1 opens into a long corridor with open doors on either side. I clear them one at a time. Office with metal desks bolted to the floor and rotary phones beneath a layer of dust. Map room with faded world maps pinned on corkboards. Little colored flags still stuck in place. Storage with stacked folding cots and boxes labeled rations, all split and empty. This space was stripped sometime after the Cold War ended, probably when someone decided the threat had passed and the budget could go somewhere else. At the far end of the hallway, another stairwell drops down, this one behind a second blast door. This one is closed fully. Rust stains trail down from the hinges, but the handle and wheel are intact. There is a black stenciled warning on the metal, authorized personnel only, lower levels. The wheel is locked in place with a heavy padlock that has fused shut with rust. Under that, someone sprayed orange paint in quick letters, "Do not open." I leave that door alone for now. First rule since the outbreak: do not open anything that someone clearly wanted closed. Instead, I work my way back to a room on level 1 that looks defensible. There is a communications room halfway down the corridor. Racks of old equipment line the wall, empty shelves where radios once sat. An analog board with patch cords and dials looms over a steel desk. On the far wall, a thick glass window looks into a smaller side room where an intercom panel and microphone hang from a bracket. The dust here is thinner. Someone came through later and did something with this space. I drop my pack by the wall and start clearing. I check overhead vents, kick under desks, open every cabinet. A dead mouse lies curled in one corner, dried out completely. No larger bones, no nests. I close the inner door and test the lock. The latch still works. It clicks in place with a dull clack that feels solid in my hand. I leave it locked and move back into the hall. There is a utility room near the stairwell with pipes, an old water tank, gauges that have frozen at random positions. A steel ladder here climbs up to a hatch. When I push, the hatch gives a little and cold air pours in. It opens near the tree line above, under a tangle of brush. Good. That gives me a second way out if something ever pushes down from the main entrance. I close the hatch again and slide a length of pipe across it to keep anything curious from trying the same approach from outside. By the time I work my way back to the comms room, the light overhead has steadied. No more flicker. The hum feels comforting and wrong at the same time. The world topside is running on fumes and candles, yet this bunker hums along on some forgotten line. I sit at the steel desk, unclip my canteen, and take a small drink. I count out my remaining food in my head. 2 cans of soup, 3 of beans, 1 of peaches, some rice, jerky. Enough for a few days if I stretch it. Longer if I can get the water system running and start thinking beyond tomorrow. There is a switch on the intercom panel by the glass window, labeled Level 2 Control. A single red indicator light glows faintly above it. The power is not only on, something is active down below. I stand and step closer, studying the board. The panel has 4 channels, each with its own switch and tiny speaker grill. Level 2 control, Level 2 hab, Level 3 storage, and AUX. Only Level 2 control has its light on. I reach for the switch, then pull my hand back and listen first. The tiny speaker gives off a low hiss, a steady static whisper that blends with the hum of the room. Every few seconds, there is a faint click in the noise, sharp but distant, like someone tapping a button once and letting it go. No voice, no breathing, just that slow, uneven rhythm. Someone hooked that line to something down below. Someone left it turned on. Maybe during the first days of the outbreak, when shelters reopened and civil defense offices dug up old plans. Maybe years earlier. Either way, that clicking means something is still in circuit. A stuck relay, or a hand. I turn the switch off and the hiss cuts out. The room feels suddenly smaller. I wait a moment, then turn it back on. The hiss returns. The clicks resume. Same pattern. I hear you, I say, even though I know no one is on the other end. My voice sounds strange in the quiet, a little too loud even though I speak low, but I am not coming down there yet. The speaker answers with another dry click and then a longer stretch of static. No voice. The fine hair on my arms stands up. I rub them down and tell myself it is the draft. I turn the intercom off again. There is plenty to do up here if I want to live longer than tonight. I spend the next few hours turning Level 1 into something I can sleep in. I drag one of the lighter desks across the hallway and wedge it in front of the comms room door from inside, laying it on its side to make a low barricade. I loop tripwire from my pack across the corridor near the stairwell and hang another tin cup from it, so anything walking through will drag it along the wall. I check every window frame twice, even though this place was built with the expectation of pressure and blast, not sunlight. The only connection to outside is the front stairwell and the utility hatch. Both are blocked. both are noisy. In the utility room, I kneel beside the pipes and open each valve in turn. At first, nothing happens. Then, from somewhere deep below, I hear the groan of water shifting through old metal. One tap in the wall near the comms room coughs, spits brown sludge, and then runs clear in a weak but steady stream. I cup my hand under it and taste a few drops. The water is flat, but not foul. That alone makes the bunker better than any farmhouse well I have found in weeks. By the time I heat a can of soup over a small alcohol stove and eat it at the comms desk, the light outside the front entrance must be gone. Only the bunker's glow remains, weak but stubborn. I do not risk any noise topside tonight. No fires above ground, no exploring for neighbors. The last town taught me what happens when you assume the infected have moved on just because the bodies are old. The intercom panel sits at my left hand while I eat. Red indicator dark. I keep glancing at it as if it might decide to turn itself back on. It does not. The room stays quietly busy with the hum of power and the tiny sounds of water moving in pipes. I rinse the can, set it aside, and finally reach out and flip the switch up again. Static floods the tiny speaker, soft but steady. The clicks are still there. Tap, pause, tap, tap, long pause. My brain tries to make a pattern out of it. It does not quite fit Morse, but it has a rhythm that feels intentional. I lean closer, elbows on the desk, keeping my voice low. Who is down there, I ask. Level 2, this is level 1. If you hear me, speak into your mic. The speaker answers with static. Then, under the white noise, something scrapes. It is faint and distant, a rough drag that rides the hiss for 2 seconds, then cuts. After that comes a pop, louder than the usual clicks, sharp enough to make me flinch back from the grill. I stare at the panel, expecting a voice, a word, anything that suggests a person. It does not come. The pattern resumes. Tap, pause, tap. If someone alive were on the other end, he or she would answer by now, unless the microphone is stuck in some room down below and whoever is near it cannot talk anymore. The thought settles in without asking my permission. The idea of a half-turned person standing in the dark near a decades-old console, hand twitching across a button, unwilling to die and unable to explain what happened on the day the lower levels were sealed. I shut the intercom off again. The decision to go down or stay up is one I can postpone until morning. I roll out my sleeping bag behind the overturned desk, in the corner of the comms room farthest from the door. I keep my rifle against my side, safety on, muzzle pointing away from everything important. Before I lie down, I do another slow circuit through the hallway with a headlamp, checking the tripwire and the main stairwell for fresh marks. Nothing has changed. No door has moved. Sleep comes in short pieces. In between, I wake and listen. Once, in the deep part of the night, I think I hear a thud from somewhere below, through the concrete. It is faint. So faint I tell myself it might be the slow settling of the bunker as air shifts through ducts that have not worked right in years. I lie there and count breaths in and out until numbers blur into something softer. When I finally sit up for good, the clock on the comms wall reads 6:12. I do not know if it is accurate. It does not matter. Above ground, daylight will be creeping over the hills. Down here, the light looks the same. I boil water for instant coffee on the stove and drink it slowly, letting the bitter taste anchor me. Food comes next. Half a can of beans, 3 crackers. My mind runs over the question I pushed off last night. What to do about level 2? I walk down the hallway toward the sealed blast door. The orange "Do Not Open" line looks brighter in the bunker light. Up close, I can see that the paint is newer than the black stenciling. It is not peeled yet, only faded at the edges. Someone wrote that warning not in the 1960s, but much more recently. Along the right edge of the door, faint scratch marks run along the metal. Not the fine claw traces of an animal, but dull, blunt scrapes, as if someone hit the door with a tool again and again without much effect. A second note is scratched into the paint below the lock in jagged lines. Infected below, sealed, dated 9 weeks ago. If the faded numbers mean what I think, 0509, with the year scratched out. That puts it well after the first national alert went out, when the cities were already starting to empty and emergency shelters were being overwhelmed. This bunker was not just a Cold War relic. Someone used it during the outbreak, and someone knew enough to trap infection below. I lean in, ear against the cold metal, and hold my breath. For long seconds there is nothing. Then, faintly, something moves beneath the noise of the building. A slow drag, then a soft impact, then silence. It might be my imagination filling in gaps. It might not. Either way, the door stays closed. I step back, swallowing the urge to shout something through it. No reason to stir whatever is below when the only thing between us is aging steel and someone else's discipline. Back in the comms room, I stare at the intercom panel again. If there were infected on the lower levels, and if someone sealed them down there is a chance someone living stayed as well for some time, trying to manage things until the line snapped. There might be records, water connections, maybe a generator that can be coaxed into giving me more than flickering lights and mana from forgotten power lines. Every calculation about long-term survival pulls me toward that locked door and that intercom switch. Every instinct from the past months pushes me away from both. In the end, I compromise with myself. I will not open the door. I will talk to it again. Information costs less than rash movement. I flip the level 2 control switch back on and raise the microphone, thumb hovering over the press to talk button. The static whisper fills the room. Between the noise, the faint clicking continues. The pattern has shifted slightly since last night, or maybe I am hearing small changes I missed before. This is level 1 again, I say after I press the button. If anyone can understand this, I need to know how many went down there on evacuation day, how many were infected, and how many might still be alive. If you can move where you are, tap something 3 times. I release the button. The static rushes. I count silently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tap. 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 Each comes with a tiny spike in the static, louder than the usual background clicks. My mouth goes dry. I lick my lips and grip the microphone harder, knuckles pale. There is someone or something responding. I press the button again. 3 taps. All right. Next question. If you are infected, if you were bitten or exposed, tap once. If you are uninfected, tap twice. When I let go of the button, the hiss feels charged. The answer comes slower this time. I imagine someone on the other end trying to understand the instruction, trying to control a hand that does not respond the way it used to. The first tap lands after almost 10 seconds. The second never does. 1 tap, I say quietly, even though no one needs me to say it out loud. So you are infected, or you do not remember, or you do not understand me. I put the microphone down gently. I should stop there. I do not. Curiosity is one of the things that kept me alive before the outbreak, and nearly got me killed after it. It never really left. I press the button again. How many are with you? I ask. Count out the number of infected with you. Tap that many times. If there are more than 10, just tap 10. The answer comes in a stumbling, broken chain. Tap, tap, pause, tap, long pause. Tap, 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 tap. I start to lose track. My mind tries to shape it into numbers and fails. Whatever is on the other end is not counting. It is just pushing the button, because the sound reaches through whatever fog remains in that brain and sparks a habit drilled in years ago. Respond to the voice on the line. I let the mic go and sit back in the chair. That is enough for now. There is no clear information, just proof that something on level 2 is still animated and still tied to this panel. It would be easy to convince myself it is just a stuck relay, some mechanical failure echoing through decades. But the timing of those taps, the pause between my questions and the responses, feels wrong for a machine. My day becomes a split routine. Work on making level 1 secure and functional, then circle back to the intercom every hour or two to see if anything changes. I shut the panel off when I leave the room. No reason to give whoever is below constant stimulation. When it is on, I ask simple questions. I get more uneven taps, occasional scraping sounds, once a muffled thud that rattles the tiny speaker. At midday, I risk a quick trip topside. I want to know what the ground around the hill looks like in full light. I clear the front stairs carefully, listening for the slightest drag of a foot beyond the blast door. Nothing moves. When I ease it open, daylight pours in through trees. The air outside smells of damp earth and distant smoke. Birdsong, no groans, no shuffling. The hill rises around the bunker entrance, covered in scrub and low trees. From the top, I can see a narrow valley with an old road cutting through. In the distance, beyond a thin line of woods, I catch the roof lines of a small town. Most of the roofs are intact. A few are blackened. No movement catches my eye across the whole spread. That does not mean the infected are gone. It just means they are out of sight. I walk a slow circle around the hill, looking for any other access points. I find 2 more hatches sunk into the dirt. One is fused with rust and earth, impossible to move without tools and time I do not want to spend above ground. The other matches the utility ladder in the bunker and is the one I blocked from inside. I make sure the brush around both doors is undisturbed, then return down into the bunker and reseat the main door as best I can. The tin mug rattles against the nail as the metal bumps the frame. Then it goes still. In the afternoon, I take inventory of everything left on level 1. Behind one storage room wall panel, I find a hidden compartment with 6 sealed plastic jugs of water and a crate of 12 rations, modern print from less than a year ago. Somebody brought fresh supplies in during the outbreak, and either left in a hurry or never had a chance to eat them. The label on the crate reads, "Regional Response Cache. Do not remove." I cut the straps with the tip of my knife and smile for the first time in days. On the back of the crate lid, there is a clipboard wedged under the slats. The paper on it is smeared but legible. It is a log sheet. Arrival of 8 personnel, 4 civilians, 12 packs assigned to level 2, 10 to level 1. Estimated capacity reached. Under that, in rushed writing, a later line. Exposure reported on level 2. Seal in progress. Evac from level 1 scheduled 0509. Then a scribbled note. 2 unaccounted for, assumed lost. If the log is accurate, this bunker was a full shelter for 20 people at some point, split across the upper and lower floors. Something went wrong on level 2. Someone made a hard call and sealed it. Then most of the survivors left level 1 on some planned convoy or on foot. 2 never checked in afterward. Maybe they were trapped below when the doors closed. Maybe they refused to leave. Maybe they are the source of the clicks I hear now, in whatever form remains. That night, the bunker starts talking in a different way. I am half asleep in my bag when the intercom in the comms room turns itself on. The pop of the circuit engaging snaps me awake. I sit up, grab the rifle, and stare at the panel. The level 2 control light glows red even though the switch is in the off position. Static pours from the tiny speaker at full volume, louder than usual, filling the room with a thin, grating rush. The clicks are gone. In their place is a slow, repeating scrape, as if something metal drags across a hard surface on the other end of the line at regular intervals. The hair on the back of my neck prickles. I reach for the switch and flip it down. Nothing happens. The light stays on. The sound continues. Whatever power controls that circuit is no longer listening to my side. I unplug the panel from the wall. The sound does not stop. The cord is only power, not the audio line. Somewhere in the guts of the bunker, a direct connection routes Level 2's intercom loop straight to this room. I stare at the wall, imagining the conduit running through concrete. I cannot cut it without tearing half the room apart. The scraping continues for almost a full minute, then stops. The static drops back to its normal whisper. The light flickers once, then steadies. This time, when I flip the switch, it obeys. The light goes off. The speaker falls silent. I should take that as a sign to leave the system alone. Instead, as the silence spreads, it feels worse than the noise. At least when it was on, I knew where the sound was coming from. In the quiet, the whole bunker becomes a potential source of movement. I leave the lights on in the hallway and sit up in my bag, back against the wall, rifle across my knees until dull gray seeps in at the edge of the hatch above, and the wall clock says, "Morning again." On the third day, I find the hatch to the lower service shaft almost by accident. I am back in the utility room checking the valves when I notice an outline in the floor behind the water tank. A rectangle of concrete with a metal ring set into one edge. Dust has filled the seam, making it nearly invisible. I drag the tank an inch aside, grab the ring with both hands, and pull. The square of concrete lifts, hinges on one side, and reveals a narrow shaft with a ladder disappearing into darkness. Cold air breathes up from the shaft, steady and dry. Somewhere down below, a slow drip counts time. This is not the main stairwell to Level 2. This is a service access route for pipes and cables, probably meant for maintenance workers. The tag bolted to the underside of the hatch says, "Service shaft B levels 1-3. If I go down, I will reach the sealed floors without touching the blast door in the hallway." I stare down into the dark and think about all the ways this is a bad idea. Confined space, unknown layout, one escape path that can be blocked with a single fallen object. The infected do not tire, and if even one of them is down there and capable of climbing, I will have nowhere to go. On the other hand, whoever sealed the main door might have assumed this route was forgotten. If there are supplies on Level 2, if there is a working generator, the shaft is my only way to reach them without breaking the warning someone wrote in orange. In the end, I do not go all the way down. Not yet. Curiosity is strong, but so is survival instinct. I lower myself onto the ladder and descend 10 rungs, enough to see past the initial blind spot. My headlamp throws a narrow beam along concrete walls slick with condensation. Cable trays run alongside the ladder, filled with bundled wires. Another 10 rungs, and I reach a small platform with a label stenciled beside it. Level 2 service. A narrow crawl space runs off to the side, presumably toward the spaces behind the walls of the lower level. I click my lamp off and listen. The darkness presses in. I hear the slow drip, the faint hum of distant power. Then, just on the edge of perception, something else. A faint mutter, a low, irregular sound that might be air moving through ducts, or might be something vocal and broken, trying to form a sound. It comes in short bursts with no pattern. The intercom and this shaft are both connected to level 2. Both carry traces of whatever is left down there. I stay on the ladder for exactly 5 slow breaths, then climb back up step by step, never turning my back fully on the dark below until the shaft hatch is closed and the weight of the bunker lies between me and that sound again. I drag the water tank back over the hatch and prop a heavy spanner on top. If anything pushes its way up, I will hear the metal fall. That afternoon, I make a decision. This bunker is too good to abandon, but too dangerous to treat as a perfect sanctuary. My plan shifts. I will use it as a base for a week, gather what I can, map the area, and then move on before the lower levels decide for me what kind of neighbor they want to be. To do that, I need information about the surrounding region, maybe a radio with range. So I turn back to the comms room, to the racks where the old equipment once sat. Most of the shelves are empty, but one cabinet under the patchboard sticks when I try to open it, as if something is wedged inside. I tug harder. The door gives suddenly, and a metal box slides out, nearly falling on my feet. It is a portable transceiver, newer than the Cold War era but older than smartphones. The battery is dead, of course, but the casing is intact. If I can jury rig power from the bunker lines, I might get it to wake up. I spend hours with wire cutters and tape, running a line from a live outlet to the transceiver's input. Once I am satisfied nothing will short and start a fire, I flip the small power toggle. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then the display glows a dull green. The speaker pops. A quiet hiss fills the room, and a few bursts of distant static cut across the band, as if something, somewhere, is still broadcasting into the broken air. I scan slowly through the frequencies, pausing whenever the hiss changes. Most of the spectrum is empty. Twice I catch faint voices, both too garbled to understand, fading in and out under some kind of interference. Once I stumble across an automated loop from a government emergency system, repeating the same advice it has given since the second week. Shelter in place. Avoid contact with anyone showing symptoms. Do not attempt to travel to major population centers. Then the loop cuts mid-sentence and dissolves into noise. That night, the intercom and the radio speak at the same time. I am seated at the desk with the headphones on, listening to a faint signal that might be coming from a handheld set in some other town, when the level 2 control light snaps on again by itself. The small speaker beside the panel crackles, then pours out static at a higher pitch than before. The scrape returns, louder, as if whatever is making it has moved closer to the microphone on the other end. In the headphones, the faint voice stutters. If anyone, East Sector, multiple breaches, we are... Then the transmission cuts off in a burst of noise. At the same breath, a new sound threads through the intercom static. A low, drawn-out moan that rises and falls, muffled but unmistakable. I have heard that sound in houses, on highways, outside barricades. It is the noise the infected make when they are not aware of anything specific yet, when they are just moving and searching. The mic on level 2 must be in a corridor or common room. An infected has wandered close enough to press against it, dragging teeth or hands or equipment across it at intervals. The taps were probably the same thing, only softer. The idea that I have been talking all this time to nothing more than random contact with a button should be comforting. It is not. It means there might not be any human judgment down there left at all. Just movement in the dark and old infrastructure still doing its job. I switch the intercom off. The light ignores me again and stays on. The sound continues. The moan cuts off suddenly, replaced by a series of wet, guttural noises, and then a heavy impact, as if something hit a wall hard. Somewhere below, something is happening, and all I can do is sit here and listen to the crumbs of it through equipment older than I am. Against my better sense, I press the microphone button one more time. If any person can hear this on level 2, I say, enunciating each word, back away from the infected. Do not try to save anyone who has already turned. Focus on closing doors and isolating them. If you are trapped, move toward higher ground or toward any marked exit. I am on level 1. I cannot open the blast door without exposing myself, but I can leave you water and food at the service shaft if you can reach it alone. I know I am talking into a grave, but the habit of giving instructions, of assuming there is someone still able to follow them, has its own momentum. The answer from the speaker is no different than before. Static, a moan, the long scrape of something across metal. No words. No taps in any pattern that resembles thought. Eventually, the noise fades back down to a low hiss. The light flickers and goes dark. This time, when I test the switch, it responds. Off is off. My decision to stay a week shortens to 4 days. The bunker's reliability depends on systems I do not control, and its ghosts are getting louder. In the time I have left, I focus on rest, on planning routes to the town visible from the hill, and on preparing a fallback stash in case I have to abandon the bunker quickly and maybe come back later. I pack 2 of the ration boxes in a hidden recess under the comms desk and leave a note taped inside. For anyone who needs it, level 1 is clear if door is closed. Do not open level 2. On the morning of the 4th day, just as I am zipping my pack and thinking about one last sweep of the storage rooms, the bunker makes my choice for me. A dull boom rolls through the concrete, strong enough to rattle dust from the ceiling. The lights flicker, go out, then snap back on at half strength. The intercom panel lights all jump to life at once, even the AUX channel that has never lit before. From somewhere deeper below, a siren starts. It is not loud, muffled by layers of concrete and distance, but the steady rising and falling tone carries a clear message. Something structural has given way. Containment breach, or just old metal finally failing under strain. The blast door to level 2 might have shifted. The service shaft might have cracked open. Either way, the sealed barrier between me and whatever roams on the lower levels no longer feels dependable. I grab my pack and rifle, shove my feet into my boots, and sprint for the hallway. The tripwire rattles as I brush past. I leave it. The orange warning on the level 2 door looks the same, but I can hear a new sound behind it now, clearer. Multiple impacts, uneven, as if several bodies throw themselves against walls and obstacles in an uncoordinated rush. Under that, a deep groan of metal protesting some new weight. The service shaft hatch in the utility room scrapes as something below pushes against it. The heavy spanner on top jiggles, then falls to the floor with a clatter. I do not wait to see if the hatch lifts. I am already climbing the ladder to the surface hatch, fingers fumbling at the latch. The siren's wail vibrates through the pipes around me. Behind it, the clear, unmistakable shriek of rebar tearing reaches my ears from the direction of level 2. The surface hatch gives. Daylight spills in, sharp after days under artificial glow. Cold air rushes over my face. I haul myself through the opening, shove the hatch back into place, and drag a fallen log across it as a token barrier. Then I run for the trees, not at a blind sprint, but at a fast, controlled pace that keeps my ears open. If any infected have been drawn here by the noise, I do not intend to stumble straight into their arms. From the crest of the hill, I look back once. The bunker entrance sits quiet, blast door crooked, tin mug still on its nail. No infected pour out of it yet. The noise is all internal, trapped for now. The siren continues its cycle, rising and falling, then cutting abruptly in mid-call. The sudden silence feels heavy. I imagine the lower levels, halls buckling, old doors failing. The creatures sealed there finally spilling into spaces their predecessors once used to shelter from a different kind of fear. Part of me wants to stay, to watch, to see if the infected manage to force the top doors, to measure how long good steel can hold when pressure builds from inside. That part is the same one that kept me listening at radios long after the last clear station died, hoping for an answer from someone in charge. The rest of me is done with basements and hidden threats for a while. I turn away and start down the far side of the hill toward the road. As I walk, I keep thinking about the crate I left under the comms desk, the note taped inside, the working water tap, the emergency exit. The bunker is no longer a perfect refuge. It is a trap with a slow fuse. But somewhere out here, someone will be desperate enough to risk it, just as I was desperate enough to crawl under a rusted blast door and trust a hum in the walls. Maybe that person will find my stash before the infected find them. Maybe not. I adjust the straps of my pack and focus on the road ahead. The town in the distance is closer with every step. New structures, new threats, new chances to stay ahead of the lines on some long-forgotten map in a control room under the ground. The bunker fades behind the trees. Sirens silent now. Secrets sealed again, at least for a little while. The story of that place keeps marching along in my head anyway. An old shelter, repurposed in a new disaster, filled and emptied and left behind with something still moving in the lower dark. I camped there for 4 days and drank its water and listened to its dead circuits. That is enough. I do not need to hear what answers it might have given if I had gone one level lower. The world above ground has more questions than I can handle already.